except his family. Hey, Pop.
Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain The Cobbler. This movie tells the story of a frustrated shoemaker who finds a magical sewing machine that allows him to see the world in a new way by stepping into his customers' lives. Let's jump into his adventure in The Cobbler. The Cobbler begins by showing a flashback to the Lower East Side area of New York City in the 19th century. Some men held meetings in secret. They were talking about small entrepreneurs who went bankrupt because property rents were skyrocketing in their area. They then asked Pinch's Simkin, a famous shoe repairman in town, for help. They gave Pinch's a pair of shoes belonging to the property boss. Arriving at the house, Pinch's fixed a pair of the property boss's shoes while telling his son. Pinch's said that the shoe sewing machine he is currently using was given to him by a homeless man after he helped him. The scene then switches to the present, which shows the life of a man named Max Simkin. Max is a descendant of the fourth-generation Simkin family who inherited his family's shoe repair business. Max is an ordinary man who also lives an ordinary life. Max looks quite happy living his life, although sometimes he feels jealous of the neighbor, who lives well and has a beautiful girlfriend. Not only a wealthy neighbor, he also has a barber neighbor named Jimmy who is quite close with him. One day, a woman named Carmen Herrera came to Simkin's shoe store. Carmen is a social worker from the Lower East Side Action Committee who asked local residents for support to sign a petition against luxury real estate development in the Lower East Side. Carmen said that property developers who want to make the Lower East Side a luxury residential area will not stop until they get it all. Hearing this, Max agreed to sign the petition. After a long day at the shoe repair shop, Max immediately went home because he lived with his sick mother, named Sarah. So far, Max has been taking care of all of Sarah's needs because she has also often forgotten everything. Her condition got worse after the departure of his father, who disappeared somewhere. The next day, a man named Leon Ludlow came to Max's shoe store and asked to have his shoes cleaned and polished. After that, he also asked Max to fix his other shoe, whose sole was broken. He would come back later that night to pick up his shoes. Max immediately repaired Leon's shoes, but the shoe repair machine he used to use suddenly broke down, and since the machine repairman couldn't come to fix it, he had to find another sewing machine in the basement that might still work. Max finds his family's old shoe repair machine used by Pinch's Simkin. He then starts repairing Leon's shoes using it. Max waited for Leon, but he never came. While waiting, he then idly wore Leon's shoes that looked expensive. An odd thing happened. He suddenly turns into Leon, and when he takes off the shoes, he returns to being himself. Max then closed his shop so that no one saw the oddity. He put on Leon's shoes again, and turned into Leon again. He then tried to put on another shoe. It didn't seem to have changed anything for him. He then concludes that the transformation only occurs when he repairs shoes using his ancestors' ancient repair machine. Max began to disassemble some shoes and repair them using the old sewing machine. Sure enough, he began to change form. The next day, Max pranks Jimmy by pretending to be someone else to greet him. From that day on, he could be whoever he wanted to be and try to live someone else's life. Max once pretended to be a Chinese man and walked around Chinatown. He starts doing something more challenging, like walking into a fancy restaurant like someone else, and exiting the restaurant as a different person to not pay. He even dared to steal rich people's shoes using Leon's form so he could drive a luxury car. Max's monotonous life becomes colorful after he discovers the magic of his ancestors' sewing machine. He came home with a happy smile, and he wanted to share his happiness with Sarah. Max then asked his mother what she wanted most in her life. Sarah said that she wanted to have dinner with her husband. Max then intends to make her happy by pretending to be his father. The next day, a beautiful woman named Taryn came to Max's shoe store and asked him to fix her boyfriend's shoes. Captivated by Taryn's beauty, Max pretends to be Emiliano, Taryn's boyfriend, so that he can date the beautiful woman. Emiliano turned out to be very handsome. Max uses his form and goes to a bar. There, he then became the center of attention of women. Max then visits Taryn at her apartment. Taryn was in the shower. Seeing her boyfriend coming, Taryn asked him to make out in the bathroom. Without thinking, Max began to take off his clothes one by one. But when he was about to take off Emiliano's shoes, he immediately realized that he would turn back into himself. He then says various reasons and leaves from there. The next day, Max meets Carmen, who is helping her neighbor. Carmen then tells Max that she still needs Max's father's signature to complete her petition, but Max said that his father was long gone. Max seems attracted to Carmen, who is down to earth and cares deeply about the well-being of those around her. He secretly often watched Carmen at work in the form of a child. That night, Max gets ready to make his mother happy. He goes into her room and compliments her beauty. Sarah wore a beautiful green dress and made up her face in such a way as to be meeting her husband after a long time. She looked happy, and so did Max. Max asked her to wait, while he would be out of the house for a while. Sarah waited for her husband to arrive in the living room. There was a knock on the door not long after, and the person she had been waiting for came. Her husband, Abraham, finally returned home. Sarah couldn't hold back the tears because she couldn't contain her happiness. She asked her husband why he had been gone for so long. Abraham replied that he had gone to buy his wife's favorite pear. Sarah did not ask further because she was delighted with her husband's return. They have dinner together, then dance passionately. Abraham remained by her side until Sarah closed her eyes. The next day, Max was surprised because his mother had not left the room as usual. He then checked on Sarah and how shocked he was that Sarah had closed her eyes for good. All the neighbors came to Max's house to express their condolences, including Jimmy, who tried to comfort Max, who looked very sad after his mother died. Max tells Jimmy that Sarah died because of his mistake, and he blames himself for her death. Max is back to work as usual. Leon then came to get his shoes. Since he couldn't show the receipt for the shoe collection, Max didn't give up his shoes either. This has always been a rule for Simkin's shoe outlets, and Max has always obeyed the rules in his shop. Leon is annoyed, then threatens to kill Max, and he immediately leaves from there. Max, who was carried away by the emotion of being threatened like that, intends to avenge Leon. He then brought some shoes for disguise and followed Leon by changing forms. He finally finds out where Leon stays. One day, Max breaks into Leon's apartment, intending to steal his luxury watch. After searching his closet, he finds a suitcase containing weapons and a gun stand. Not getting what he wanted, Max rushed out of Leon's apartment. But unfortunately, Leon had rushed back to his apartment and caught him. Obviously, Leon was surprised because someone was very similar to him, even though he didn't have a twin brother. Max then electrocutes Leon with a stand gun he took from Leon's suitcase. Max then tied Leon to a chair. He transformed into a transgender man and forced him to say where he had hidden his watch. Shortly after Leon said that, there was a knock on the door. Max peeked through the doorway and saw two men standing in the doorway. They were his men and came here because they worked on a $50,000 business. Max, who was interested because he thought he would get a lot of money, changed his form into Leon and left with Leon's men. He is then escorted to a place where Leon's men have imprisoned a man named Patrick. The man was caught stealing money from Leon, and they intended to execute him. One of Max's men was about to shoot Patrick in the head, but Max stopped him. Max then tells Patrick that he will release him if he regrets what he did and doesn't do it again. After that, Max and his men visited a mansion belonging to a land boss named Elaine Greenewalt. Elaine gave Max a bag of cash which amounted to half of the total money they agreed to in the deal. Elaine said she would provide the rest of the money when Leon and his men had finished their work. Max, of course, didn't know what work Leon and his men had to do. He didn't care either because he intended to end all of this. Max immediately returned to Leon's apartment wearing transgender stilettos. It turned out that Leon had managed to break free and immediately attacked him. Leon takes a gun and is about to kill Max, but Max immediately took off one of his shoes to outwit Leon. As Max expected, Leon became so shocked after seeing Max's true figure that he didn't shoot him. Max then used the opportunity to escape by kicking Leon with his stilettos. It turned out that the sharp tip of the stiletto pierced Leon's neck and killed him. Max quickly ran away from there. Max then returns home after a long day. He immediately fell asleep on the sofa. The next morning, he goes to the police station to turn himself in after accidentally killing Leon Ludlow. However, after Max and the police arrived at the scene, Leon's body was nowhere to be found. Max tries to convince the police that he did kill Leon and his body should be here. But because there were no victims and no evidence whatsoever, the police finally left. Max returns to his shoe store and finds his belongings left in Leon's apartment the night before. Not only that, Leon's money and luxury watch were also in his bag. Max gets even more confused and wonders who had removed Leon's body and put his things in his shop. He took his bag and hurried out of the shop. But when he was about to leave, Jimmy walked up to him and said that Max has been acting strange lately and often suddenly disappears. Jimmy then continued that Max's father used to be like that too until he finally dealt with bad people who threatened his family's life. Jimmy finally couldn't help but tell a secret about Max's father, who had to leave his family and disappear as if he were dead to keep them safe and live a normal life. Max was immediately furious and pushed Jimmy. Max was furious at Jimmy for keeping it a secret all this time and always meddling in his affairs. Max then takes the form of a transgender and goes to Elaine to return the money. Max said that he didn't know where Leon was and came here on his orders. Elaine, of course, doesn't believe it and tells Max that she already knows their business and can't just walk away. Max is then held captive by Elaine's men, but he managed to escape by using the form of a dead man. After that, Max returns home and decides never to use his ancestors' magic sewing machine again. He then goes to Jimmy and apologizes for pushing him. Jimmy says he also regrets never telling Max about his father's secret and chose to keep it a secret for years. Max was back to live his life as before again. Max sees the flyer Carmen had given him about land acquisition for the Lower East Side property inside his shop. He then just realized that the property that Carmen was fighting for belonged to an old man named Solomon, who insisted that he would not leave his property and sell it to a developer company. While he was being held captive by Elaine's men, he had heard they intended to burn Solomon's property. Max immediately goes to Carmen and tells Elaine's plan. The woman then took Max to Solomon's apartment building, where Solomon was the only one living there. Max and Carmen then tell Elaine's plan, but Solomon said that he was not afraid and would never leave his house because he had many precious memories in his house. An idea crossed Max's mind, and he began to devise a plan. The next day, Max takes Solomon's form and meets Elaine. Max asked for $100,000 and a return plane ticket to Chicago to meet his daughter. After that, he would leave his property. Elaine immediately agreed. That evening, 2 of Elaine's men came to hand over Solomon's money and plane tickets. Unbeknownst to them, their shoes had been exchanged by Max. Max, who is now using the form of Elaine's men, Jeffrey, contacts Elaine and says that Solomon has left. After that, he uses Leon's form to distract Jeffrey from entering Solomon's apartment. But upon arrival, Max has transformed into Brian, Jeffrey's friend, who Solomon pretended to hold. Max immediately dropped Jeffrey with a stand gun and one problem was solved. On the other hand, the real Brian was accompanying the real Solomon to the airport. Elaine orders Brian to make sure Solomon goes to Chicago. However, when he arrived at the airport, Brian was even arrested by the police. Another problem was solved. The next day, Elaine bumps into Carmen, who says that she just visited Solomon. Obviously, Elaine was shocked because Jeffrey told her that Solomon had gone to Chicago the night before. Elaine rushed to Solomon's house and the old man was indeed there, but unbeknownst to her, it was Max using Solomon's form. Max tells Elaine that he has paid her men to lie. Elaine, who felt toyed with, then threatened to burn Solomon and his property. She also threatened to kill Solomon's daughter, who was in Chicago. But then, a reporter and cameraman from a well-known local newspaper came into the room through the door behind Solomon. The reporter said that he had recorded the words of Elaine, who planned to kill Solomon and his daughter. Finally, Elaine was imprisoned. After that, Carmen goes to Max's shoe store to fix her shoes and asks what Max has done to help Solomon, even throwing Elaine into prison. Of course, Max didn't tell the secret. Carmen then invited him to have dinner together, which of course was welcomed by Max happily. But before that, Max uses Leon's form once again to visit Leon's ex-girlfriend, Macy. When Max followed Leon back then, he caught Leon hurting his girlfriend. Max intends to become Leon to apologize to Macy and give her a luxury watch and money. Macy was very surprised that Leon looked so pale, but she accepted his apology and received the gift. After leaving Macy's apartment, Max, who is still using Leon's form, is captured by Patrick and his men because they want revenge. Max was locked in the back seat, and they started driving. But suddenly Patrick's car had an accident, and when Max woke up, he was already at Jimmy's. The man handed Max a glass of water and a bottle of pickles. Max takes the water, but not the pickles, and asks what the pickles are for. Jimmy then said that he had saved Max from an accident, and he knew Max's secret that he often changed his appearance by wearing other people's shoes. Jimmy says that pickles can help Max get rid of the discomfort he's had from a series of transformations he's been through over the years. Max asks how Jimmy knows everything. Then Jimmy revealed a secret. Jimmy took off his shoes, and how surprised Max was that he had been his father who had changed his appearance. On the one hand, Max is thrilled to see his father again, but on the other hand, he is also very angry with his father for leaving his family. Abraham says that he was forced to change his appearance forever to protect Sarah and Max. Abraham then took Max to the basement below his shop. It turned out that the room was filled with shoes from important customers of Simkin's shoe outlet since the days of Max's great-grandfather. Abraham wants Max to be able to protect his family's legacy and is responsible for always doing good and using the magical ancient sewing machine for good. He was also very proud of Max for taking care of and making his mother happy until the end of her life. After that, Abraham took Max to another room with a luxury limousine and a driver ready to take Abraham anywhere. The father and son went home together, and on the way back, Abraham told how the Simkins got their hands on the magic sewing machine. The film ends.